Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very special live stream brought to you by RaceShare and Racing TV. As we sit down on a Monday evening to chat to Roger Varian about the lost sock, who is, of course, a member of the RaceShare family, but also, importantly, a member of the Racing TV syndicate as well, which means there are plenty of owners out there who have got a share in the lost sock and are excited about his progress so far and looking forward to what we can see from him on the track. And of course, it's a whole part of the RaceShare experience, whole part of being in a syndicate, a whole part of the Racing TV syndicate is that you get to see behind the scenes. You get to be an owner for a fraction of the cost. And a part of being an owner is getting to grill your trainer, of course. So that's what we've got to look forward to tonight. We are live on the RaceShare YouTube channel as well. So hopefully that will be going all smoothly. If you could just tell me in the chat if you are watching and everything's going smoothly, just to put my mind at rest, that would be lovely. But we've also got some questions from the owners, and we'll be chatting till about 7 o'clock in the company of Roger Varian. So without further ado, let's introduce the great man himself. And first things first, Roger, thanks for taking time out on a Monday evening when you could undoubtedly be at Windsor, I'm sure, for taking your time out to have a chat to us.
No, thanks for having me. No runners at Windsor, so I couldn't use that excuse. Very happy, obviously.
Well, thanks for, like I said, thanks for joining us. And it's a bit of an honour, really a pleasure to have a horse with such a bloody good trainer. Really, I mean, this is your I think it's your 14th season. I think with your name on the license, and yeah, it's we've had a couple of runs from the lost sock so far, and we're looking forward to his progress. But how are you feeling about life as a trainer in 2025? Like I said, you've established yourself now. How's the season going for you?
Yeah, we're reasonably happy. I mean, as a trainer, you're never completely happy. There's always something behind the scenes that no one's aware of, possibly going wrong. And of course, when you're going to a race course, more often than not, you're not winning, even when you're going well. So as a trainer, we're fairly insecure breed, and whilst thankfully plenty goes right, plenty goes wrong as well. So it's always I suppose human nature for the things that are maybe not going so well to play on your mind more than the things that go well. When something goes well or you have a success, it's great, but it sort of breezes past you fairly quickly. The things that maybe you need to tinker with or you're not so happy with, stick with you longer. I think that's human nature, and I think it's a way you should be as well, always trying to improve. But this season, I think we got off to a really solid start. I thought through the first half of the season, through Ascot, maybe end of June, early July, we went really solid. Good strike rate, horses running consistently well. I actually feel we've been a little bit sticky the last 2 or 3 weeks. Well, some horses have run well. I'm not sure that the stable is as sort of as healthy through and through as it was in the early part of the year. So I feel we're just picking our way, have been for the last couple of weeks, and maybe another week or two more, just picking our way, maybe not having quite as many runners as we would like this time of year. But that's my job to recognise those things, run the horses which we are confident are going to run well, and those that are maybe not quite 100%, just to take our time and wait for them to come good.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a long old season, isn't it? And it's especially with the weather as well. It's been pretty much fast ground from the get-go. So I imagine some of your horses maybe they're having more runs than they might do. You might not get the break in that they might do at some point during the summer. Or is it? I guess the question is it possible for you to understand why you're having a little bit of a quiet patch, or is it just your job to navigate your way through it?
Well, it's my job to navigate our way through it. There's various factors, contributors. Not one thing that you can eradicate overnight. So horses are living and breathing animals. Of course, they've not only got their physical capabilities. They need to be absolutely 100% healthy to perform to their best, as we would as well. And they've got their own minds as well. So we're working with 150 different personalities, all at slightly different stages of their sort of athletic career. So at the moment, I think we're not going too badly, but I know that the last 2 or 3 weeks we've not been having as many runners as I'd like, and we haven't quite been running as consistently well as I'd like. So, that course of 12 months of any year, it's rare that you go all guns blazing, week in, week out. And, we've got to recognize when things are maybe not as perfect as we'd like them. And, just wait and be patient, for the consistency to return. And I'm sure that will, be the case fairly soon.
Well, before we talk about the Lostock individually, let's talk about some high points. You've had last year. You had a star miler in the stable, and London Buses. Another one's come along this year in the shape of My Cloud. Would he be the sort of the high point of the season for you?
I think anytime you have a Royal Ascot winner, it's always a high point of any year. It's such a special place, and it's a hard place to have winners. So absolutely, looking at the season so far, My Cloud's been one of the highlights. He's won each of his 3 starts, and very exciting win in the Royal Hunt Cup at the Royal Meeting. He hasn't ran since, but hoping to get him out again at the end of the month. And I think although he hasn't sort of made that jump into pattern company yet, I'm hopeful he's a horse who will be able to do that. And I think through the rest of this year, but looking ahead to next year as well, he could be a real very important horse for us, a real flag flyer for us.
And who else are you? Again, before we get stuck into our horse, who else have you been excited about over the course of the season?
Yeah, we're working hard to unearth the next star, I guess. Last year we were spoiled with Charon, as you said. Champion European miler, a great horse to have in the camp, and of course we won the 1,000 guineas last year with Malika. She stayed in training. She hasn't quite repeated that level of form which she showed on 1,000 guineas day, but we haven't given up hope that she can't win another Group 1, and she could lower her sights in the Group 3 Atalanta Stakes at Sandown at the end of the month, hopefully before seeing her return to the course and distance of that 1,000 guineas. She'll likely contest for Sun Chariot Stakes later in the autumn. So we're excited to see Malika out again, and hopefully she can post another top flight victory before the year's out.
And Malika's owner, of course, is one of your biggest supporters. Again, it's not you can't do it all yourself, can you, Roger? You need the owners. You need Sylvester de Souza as well, a great member of the team. How important is it to have great owners, great jockeys, great staff as well?
It's the whole package of training. I am just the person at the top of the operation here, naming the race card, and of course I suppose responsibility lies with me. Good and bad that passes through our place. That's absolutely my responsibility. But it's really a huge team that I am reliant on. And that goes for all the owners in the yard. Of course, I have no business, no operation, no winners if I didn't have the horses. So hugely reliant on the owners. And then it's it's a huge job getting these horses ridden, cared for, looked after day in, day out, and prepared for the races. And yes, I'm making the decisions and having I suppose lead direction on all the decisions made in camp, and training decisions and race decisions. But I'm not doing it on my own. Huge backroom team here. A great team of riders, a great team of yard staff, a full office team, pulling everything together, from race planning to logistics, owner communication. So it's a huge team, and we sort of live the whole experience together. We all sort of up together when things are going well, and we feel we feel things when things are not going so well. So I sort of consider it a real wide team training horses, and I think everyone can incorporate in that support system, from your owners to your staff, and of course people following the stable at home.
Well, speaking of owners, there's quite a few who would like to quiz you about the Lost Sock, who of course our juvenile purchased from the Breeze Ups, and we've seen him twice on the track so far, and he's learning his job, and he's coming along nicely. However, just update us again on there's been a little bit of a setback, but nothing too much to worry about. Or well, you tell us what the situation is at the moment.
Yeah, I think just a small issue at the moment. Timing was very poor for us to consider racing him this week. Of course, he had the entry at Chelmsford City over 6 furlongs. He's not going to take up that entry, and what happened Thursday or Friday last week, towards the end of last week, he'd done his exercise, so he sort of completed almost all of his exercise. If the horse is ridden for between an hour and an hour and 10 minutes, he'd had his warm up here in our arena just outside here. He'd gone out onto the gallops. He'd done 2 canters up Warren Hill. He walked home. He was nice and relaxed, done his work, and crossed the road just up here, top end of Bury Road, and walking maybe 100 yards from the yard, so nearly exercise complete. And we walked back just along the horse walk, which is next to the Bury Road, and a motorcycle came speeding past, didn't quite slow down enough, great big noisy exhaust, and spooked the horses, and all the horses spooked. He wasn't on his own, but he was the one who spooked and just lost his footing, came down on his knees, actually both knees, but he gave his left knee, had a little flesh wound on his left knee. It's very superficial. It's only skin deep, hasn't gone into any of the delicate soft tissues or the joint itself. So it's just a skin deep, very small wound, but it did require a few stitches. So if you imagine, like your kid falls on his knee and, nasty gash on his knee, the horse has done the same. A few sutures, few stitches in the knee, but a very clean job, very good job from the vets. A little bit of associated bruising that came out over the weekend, but he's perfectly sound. And tomorrow he'll actually have a rider back on his back for the first time since the accident, and he'll trot here in our arena for a couple of days, hopefully before going back and training as normal. So I think all in all, he'd have lost maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 meaningful days of exercise, which obviously, scuppered plans of running this week, but it's not going to hold us back for too long.
Yeah, I mean, he was coming along nicely up to that point. I'm going to throw you a few questions from the owners now about his progress. Starting off with Ian Atkin. Thanks for sending this in. He says, "Can Roger explain how training a 2-year-old coming to him from a Breeze Up purchase like the Lost Sock might differ from a 2-year-old coming from, say, a pre-training yard?" So obviously, Breeze Up horses are primed to perform their best on the day to be sold for the highest possible price. So how do they, when the Lost Sock arrived at your yard, is there anything you do differently to a horse someone might have bred themselves or bought as a yearling?
Well, we get them in, and I guess like any horse that you're setting eyes on for the first time, maybe you've seen it at the sales, but coming into the yard, you have to get to know the horse's characteristics, personality, movement, all of that. But I suppose you have to get to know the horse much quicker, because when we're having them as yearlings or from pre-training, it's generally seeing them much further down the line in reverse. And when they come from a Breeze Up, so they've obviously been tuned to go as quick as they can within reason for 2 furlongs. So horse coming maybe in April, from Doncaster Breeze Ups, horse comes in, and like any horse, you have to get to know the horse, but you have to assess it very quickly as to whether it's a horse who can maybe get on a race course in as little time as 2 or 3 weeks. It's not unheard of, but you see horses from a Breeze Up sales, hammer down, purchase made, can be running maybe 3 weeks later. So
do you feel a bit of pressure when a Breeze Up horse comes in to think, I have to move a little bit quicker than normal?
I don't think so. I think that not every Breeze Up horse should be running 3 weeks after sale, and I think it's your job as a trainer is to recognise whether the horse actually take advantage of the work it's already done, take advantage of it. It's gone that pace over 2 furlongs. Maybe it just needs a little bit more work, bit of starting gate training, and you can be on the track and you can be running. Not all breeze-up horses will be like that, and often they might need a complete break from training following a breeze-up sale because they've maybe done that bit much earlier in their careers than you might have done yourself. You say your horse needs a bit more time, so the whole spectrum's covered. We can get on and we can run them 2 or 3 weeks after sale, or we can give them a complete break and train them for the autumn, or train them like a late maturing horse. So
ultimately, you're still your job is to assess.
We're assessing, yeah. We're constantly assessing with all the horses, and horses change very quickly. They come forward very quickly and they can go backwards very quickly, and it's our job to be on top of all those sense points and make the decisions for the good of the horse and ultimately the best interests of the owner at home.
Paul Quinn asks, how do you accurately determine a horse's ability at home? Especially with a young 2-year-old. Is it with a gallop of other 2-year-olds or more experienced handicappers? And he was saying that you often hear the determinations of stable confidence or goes well at home. And I guess, like you said, you're assessing, but how do you judge? Okay, we think this horse is up to this level, and we think this horse is up to that level. That's quite wide. I realise that's quite a broad.
Yeah, well, we have a good guide from what we're seeing at home, and we see the horses train, day in, day out, week and a month, and generally we've had the horses in our care for a long time, so you can form an impression of a horse from an early stage, how good you think it might be. But as I say, they're ever evolving. They can improve very quickly. They can actually go backwards on you as well. Once we start our faster work, yes, we have a guide on variability, depending on the horses that their peers that they might be working with. Maybe there's some horses with racecourse experience that they're working with, so you can have a guide. And yeah, I think if an owner was to ask me, okay, I know this horse hasn't run yet, but put a rating on it best as you can. Always quite a hard thing to pinpoint and get right, but maybe we could give a £10 band and say, well, the horse might end up better in time, but at the moment, horse is working to between 70 and 80. And
do you feel you have to sort of, I've spoken to a couple of trainers who say, I always, just downplay it slightly because you don't want to be too optimistic, perhaps? Do you feel any of that pressure?
Well, I think you have to be careful to raise the bar too high before you've got the racecourse outing as evidence, because as much as we do have a guide at home and we get to know them, we think we might know a range of their ability. There's no place like a racecourse for really finding out, and it's not unheard of for horses who you haven't rated so highly actually to evolve from a racecourse and be your higher rated horses. And some horses who have set the world alight at home on the gallops and maybe haven't reach those heights on the racecourse. So there's a swing both ways from gallop performance to racecourse performance, and I think because of that, and having done it for a long time now, we know that we don't always get it right, and I would always err on the side of caution in terms of raising expectations, because it's always a nice surprise to run above expectations. It was slightly disappointing to run below expectations. But we'll, as accurately as we can, say, how good we think we are at that moment in time, whether it's before their first race or third race or first run as a 3-year-old. Of course, my job to give a guide of where we think we are ability-wise, but we have to be careful at saying everyone else should stay at home. We've got this race in the bag. That's A, that's not my style, and B, it's a very dangerous line to lead with.
Well, especially when you have 6 horses in there and all 6 trainers are saying that as well, which is could have possibly happened. Lizzie Coltman, a couple here. One from Lizzie Coltman and one from Anne Smith. Lizzie says, "What's the Lost Sock's personality like around the stable?" And Anne Smith says, "Does he have a stable name?"
Answer the first question. He's a great personality. Actually, he's a real gentleman, a very kind horse, absolutely no trouble. He's a very sweet-natured horse. you know, there's a saying, you could put a kid in a box with a horse, and you know, you wouldn't, because horses are unpredictable. But you feel you could with him. He's a kind horse. He's not too yappy, and you know, he wouldn't. He has never threatened to kick anyone or kick another horse. He's just a pleasure to handle, really. And you know, his personality in the stable and handling him, and his personality to ride. And I think you've seen in all of our updates that we've, from that breeze up sale and purchase and getting him home, we just took time to relax into our rhythm, relax into our routine. So I would say maybe on a mild side, but he was slightly up tempo when he arrived, and he's gradually relaxed. And actually, with both races, he's relaxed even more. So that's sort of two sides of his personality. But ultimately, he's a very kind horse.
And does he have a does he have a stable nickname?
I'm not sure what he has. It's not got to me, I'm afraid, if he has. The Lost Sock. He's very well named. I'm not sure who named him, but it's a fantastic name, of course, because he's one sock missing.
Yeah, it's well, we also have another Cotai Glory with Ed Bethel, and I think he has the same markings as well. So it's interesting to see those two horses replicate those markings. And I mean, obviously, he, like you said, he is bred to be pretty fast, isn't he? But then there's a little bit of 7 furlong form in there. And how important is breeding and assessing a horse? And at what point do you ever sort of leave what's on the page behind and go what's on the track and what he's doing at home? You know, at this stage, are you thinking, well, he's bred to be a sprinter, he looks like a sprinter, he's running like a sprinter, we'll treat him like a sprinter, essentially?
I think that you can blend sort of both lines of information. I think ultimately you have to look at the horse that you're training on a day-to-day basis, and best that you can forget about the pedigree, so that you're focused on what the horse is doing in front of you, because there's always horses that buck with a pedigree trend, and if you're led solely on pedigree, then I think you can miss a horse, or a horse can slip away from you without necessarily getting the best from the horse. But you can't help but have that pedigree slightly in the back of your mind, so sort of contradicting myself a bit there, but you know, very much training the horse, the individual in front of you.
Yeah. You don't want to be completely rigid to your initial thoughts.
No, you can't be, because you know, for the reasons I touched on earlier, you know, horses change very quickly, and you know, horses are evolving very quickly, and it's very dangerous to put a horse in a box and not have the flexibility to move away from that where you've sort of got him pigeoned. But for Lost Sock, he looks a fast horse. He's built like a fast horse. Cotai Glory is a very fast horse.
When you say built like a fast horse, again, what do you mean? What does a pure sprinter look like?
Yeah, I always make the analogy with humans and horses, which is a silly thing to do, but you know, a sprinter, maybe Usain Bolt, buck by trend, he was kind of a lanky, lean individual, but most sprinters are, you know, a bit stockier, a bit thicker set, you know, bigger biceps, you know, stronger thighs, and the middle distance runners are a bit slimmer, aren't they? And you know, stretch out over further. Horses are no different. The odd one bucks a trend, but generally a sprinting horse with a very square quarter, you know, good, I call it the second thigh, which is essentially call the muscle of Gaskin, which is horse's bicep. You know, you sort of see you know, much sort of fuller muscular development than maybe a long distance horse or a middle distance horse. So as individuals, you know, you can sort of pick a sprinter up, I think, by looking at their physical characteristics. But again, there's horses that break those trends all the time, and you've got to be careful not to pigeonhole a horse. And I believe Cotai Glory, as fast a horse as he was, he does also have success at getting the horses to stretch out over further than what he ran over. So you have to keep an open mind.
And in terms of distance, we've got a few questions about this. Peter Wildman, Stephen Jones, and John Bentley emailed in with questions. Peter said, again, do you see him purely as a sprinter? But the other part of that question is, given how weak the British sprinting division is, how far do you think he could go in that? And Stephen Jones says, what do you think his optimum trick will be as he progresses with age? So, I mean, obviously we've seen reported this week that a couple of 2-year-old sprinters are going to be taking on the elders in the Numthorpe, probably because again, it looks like a weak division. So yeah, at the moment, given that your cautious optimism, how far do you think he could progress at these at the sprint distances?
Yeah, it's probably too soon to really be definitive with an answer there. He's run 2 nice races. Yeah, I should think his second start, he's ran close to a mark of 80, perhaps around about 80. So that's quite a nice mark to achieve on only your second start. But he's got a long way to go before we're talking about him, taking on the top sprinters, even in a weak year or a weak division. So he's a nice horse, he's a capable horse. He's run 2 pleasing races, and sprinters can improve over time with age. We see it all the time. Sprinters not. We always sometimes make the mistake of associating speed with precocity, but a lot of sprinters get better with age and don't reach their peak till they're 4 or even 5 years old. So it's impossible.
You had some fun with Kate Byron when he was a bit older as well, for example.
Yeah, it's impossible to look that far ahead with the Lost Sock at this stage, because we're still getting to know him, and I'd say we've made an encouraging start, but I'd be keeping our feet on the ground, and let's try and make him a winner first and foremost, and then I should think he will slot into the handicap system, and we'll feel our way. And in terms of how far he can race over, we've gone 6 furlongs and we've gone back to 5. I think next time up we could go 5 or 6, and then we'll just see. I think we'll sit in that sprinting bracket for a little while, but over time he might get further. But again, it's too early to really say.
Okay. Let's have a look. I've got a couple of questions. I'm going to talk about his ability and his handicapping. The Paul Chew, Jay Muir, Emma Moore. Again, trying to get a fair gauge on his ability. Obviously, he's run twice. 3rd run for a handicap mark, which will qualify him for nurseries. Is that something?
Oh, just losing you.
We just frozen a little bit.
Can you hear me?
We sort of a little bit of a freeze there, I think.
Yeah. Are you back?
Back. Frozen stream there. Right. We're all gone. Let's have a look. Try again. There we go. Roger, you back?
I'm back.
There we go. That's all right. We had a little bit of a freeze there. Yeah, in terms of handicap marks, nurseries, obviously, 2-year-old handicaps, how important is that?
Lost you. Are you back?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Technical issues. Can you hear me, Roger?
I can hear you now.
There we go. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, nurseries. Is that an option?
Obviously, it's an option. We need to run again first. We'd love to win our next start if we can, find the right race, and he can, step up to the job and bring home a prize next time out. And then, of course, we get our mark. And I would think nurseries is an option. If we ran again and we didn't win, then we're still going to have, maidens and novices and nurseries as options. So however you look at it, after our next start, we're going to have a program book open up to us. I think we might have to be mindful as we move into the autumn of the weather and the ground. Whilst it's not completely proven, I would suggest he's a horse who might struggle on really soft ground. So, that the elements might, filter into our decision-making process as well. But it'd be lovely to get him out, towards the end of this month now, end of August, present him with a winning opportunity, or what we feel is a winning opportunity. And then win, lose or draw, we'll have more options afterwards.
And Robert Barnes has asked, in terms of how we purchased the horse. Of course, Patrick Veach is the buyer of our horses. And have you known Patrick for long? How important was his input when it came to choosing which horse would be sent to you? And yeah, again, how do you interact with the buyer in terms of when someone like Patrick comes to you and says, "I want you to train this horse"?
Yeah, I must admit, it's been a new process for me. I've known of Patrick for many years, and was really delighted earlier this year, when he approached, and that was very much out of the blue. But to have the opportunity to work with him and be involved in RaceShare, and of course Racing TV syndicate horse, was very appealing for me. But the opportunity to work with Patrick, was very attractive as well, because although it's the first time I've really interacted and worked closely with Patrick, I think it's fair to say he's a very big reputation within the game, from a form perspective, and just from having a deep knowledge in, I suppose, behind the scenes form, data, statistics, and all kinds. A lot of which I've learned since I've been working with Patrick, or since I've been involved in the process. Going back to when the Lost Sock was purchased, we had a list of horses to look at the Doncaster Breeze Up sales, and I was just going off a list which Patrick had presented to me of horses, really to say yes I like, or no I don't. But I think the pedigree analysis, and the pedigree clicks, and the pedigree data, from my point of view, from what I was hearing and the impression I was getting, was really thorough, to the point where I maybe put forward a couple of horses which weren't on the list, as maybe I liked them as individuals, or thought they might be suitable, and for very thorough reasons, Patrick might have dismissed. So I've seen a level of detail that I've, I guess, rarely been exposed to before, in terms of the whole behind the scenes spectrum of, to begin with, purchasing the horse. But since we've had the horse, weekly conversations on the horse's training, and then the races that we're looking to enter in, and once we've entered, the caliber of the race, and assessing the opposition. So we're looking at detail to a very high level, from purchase to race day, and that package that you're getting with Patrick, steering the ship from afar, I guess, gives us access to information, data, statistics, which as a trainer you're sort of hands-on all the time, very hard to get a complete perspective of. So I think it's a great asset having Patrick in the background. I've really thoroughly enjoyed working with him so far.
And do you think that's, in a game now that's dominated by legacy breeders, or trying to break into either people who've been in the game for decades and decades and decades, or people who have bottomless pockets of cash, it feels like you do have to take another step forward, an even more detailed approach than you maybe did 10 or 20 years ago, to try and crack a bit of that at the top level of the game these days.
Absolutely, it's about finding an edge, if there's an edge out there. We're dealing in a game of very small margins, making a difference. And I think small margins on the racecourse, but small margins maybe on the sales ground as well. It all starts with choosing the right horse, and once you've chosen the right horse, a lot's got to go right in the process, the training, the racing, and everything else, all the different intricacies that go into the process that create the journey that we're all on. But the very beginning is, of course, bringing the right horse home. And as I say, I sort of maybe I'm repeating myself, but seen a level of detail and knowledge, I guess, which is which has been really beneficial. I've really enjoyed that.
Okay, a few quick fire questions before we let you go. We've got a couple of minutes. First things first. Imagine, let's take reality off the table, as it were. Say the Lost Sock is a sprinter. What race do you think is the sprinter's race that you would like to win?
Sprinter's race that I'd like to win. Well, I'd take either of the Group 1's Royal Ascot Week, 5 furlong race or the 6 furlong race. So the King's Stand or the Golden Jubilee.
Yeah. I was just going to say that those two names will be forever imprinted in my head. And
maybe we can do both, like Blue Point.
Yeah, that'd be all right, wouldn't it? That'd be all right. And in terms of the rest of your season, what's the target? What would make you as happy as you could be by the end of the season?
Yeah, a trainer happy. Cool. It's
Yeah.
hard to get there. Well, I'd love to find another Group 1. The horse is not obvious at the moment. We're searching, I guess, for that next Group 1 star. But hopefully we can have some Group 1 action in the autumn, and we've a good autumn record over the years, and we've, I think, 4 years in a row won a Group 1 on Champions Day at Ascot. Yeah. So we'll be searching, to bring home a winner at the very top. But if we're not able to do that, just to find a level of consistency, over the next 3 or 4 months, to unearth a 2-year-old who looks like he could be a classic prospect next year is always exciting for everyone involved. So they're bigger goals. I'd love to find a winner's enclosure with a Lost Sock. That's got to be ambition for
I was going to say that's definitely. I think that's the correct answer. Yeah.
Got there in the end. So no, we are. We're in a sport that generally we're sitting on results day in, day out. There's not too many days that pass through the season when we haven't got runners on an individual day. So we're in a public result business. It's very important to keep the success flowing. So hopefully we can pick up the winning pace over the next few weeks. Have a really strong autumn. It's all a bit general, really, but obviously winning races. I think we've trained 14 completed seasons. We trained Group 1 winners from 12 of those 14 seasons. Haven't struck yet this year, so we're keen to bring home a race at a very top level. But whether we can or not this year, we'll have to see. But we've got a lot of good things going on. A lot of nice young horses pushing through. So.
Yeah, we still got a good 3 months to go, isn't there? So plenty of time for that. Anyway, Roger, we're going to have to love you and leave you. And I've really enjoyed speaking to you. And I, again, 100% appreciate you taking the time out, because I'm sure you have a million and one responsibilities. So let's hope the Lost Sock recovers from his minor setback, and we can see him on the track very soon.
No, thank you very much. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Roger, you're a star. Thanks ever so much, and thanks everyone for watching and sending in the questions as well. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Roger.
No, thank you.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.